I buried my wife 6 months ago. Yesterday, I saw her alive at the grocery store. My name is Leonard Patterson, I'm 58 years old, and I thought I knew what grief looked like. I had stood at Dorothy's grave until my legs went numb, until the cold marble headstone felt warmer than my hands. 6 months of waking up to an empty bed where my wife of 32 years used to sleep. 6 months of learning how to cook for one person instead of two. 6 months of figuring out how to live without the woman who handled everything. All our finances, all our banking, everything that kept our retirement secure. Or so I thought. That Tuesday morning, I went to Miller's Market because a man's got to eat, even when he doesn't feel like it. I was standing in the canned goods aisle, looking at soup labels and thinking how strange it was that Campbell's still cost the same whether you're buying for two people or just yourself. That's when I heard it. Her voice. Not calling my name, just talking to someone about prices. That same tone she used when she complained about grocery bills for 32 years. The voice I swore I'd never hear again. My hand froze halfway to a can of tomato soup. I turned around slowly, my heart already pounding before my brain could catch up. And there she was, standing 3 aisles over, holding a shopping basket, comparing cereal boxes like she always did. Dorothy. Same short blonde hair she'd kept since the 80s. Same way of tilting her head when she read labels. Same small scar on her chin from when she fell off her bike as a kid. The woman I buried. The woman whose name was carved in stone next to the plot I'd already bought for myself. I dropped the can. It hit the floor with a loud bang that echoed through the store. People turned to look. Someone asked if I was okay. I wasn't listening. I was already walking toward her. Dorothy, I called out, my voice cracking like I was a teenager again. Dorothy, it's me. She turned around. For 1 second, I expected her to smile. To run over and explain this whole nightmare. To tell me it was all some terrible mistake. Instead, she looked confused. Genuinely confused. I'm sorry, she said slowly, like she was talking to someone who might be dangerous. I think you have me confused with someone else. Those words hit me harder than seeing her alive. Confused? After 32 years of marriage? After I memorized every line on her face, every habit, every way she moved? No, I said, stepping closer. Dorothy, it's Leonard. Your husband. She took a step back. That hurt more than anything. Dorothy never stepped away from me. Not once in 3 decades. My name is Patricia Wells, she said. I don't know you. I think you might need to sit down. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and found a picture from last Christmas. Us sitting by the tree, her wearing that red sweater I bought her for our anniversary. I held it up between us. Look at this. Remember Christmas? You made that terrible eggnog and blamed the recipe. She glanced at the screen. Just for a moment, something flickered in her eyes. A pause too long. Her jaw tightened. Then she shook her head. I've never seen that photo before. Sir, I think you're going through something difficult. She placed a hand on my shoulder. That touch almost broke me. Same warmth, same gentle pressure she used when she wanted to calm me down after a bad day at the construction site. Please, she said softly. You should get some help. And just like that, she walked away. I stood there shaking while a store employee cleaned up the mess I'd made. People avoided my eyes. Someone whispered, "Poor old guy." They were wrong. I wasn't poor. I was terrified. Because as I watched her disappear toward the checkout, one thought screamed louder than my grief ever had: if Dorothy was alive, then who the hell was buried in that grave? I should have gone home. Should have called my doctor, my son, somebody. Told myself that losing your wife can make your mind play tricks on you. That would have been easier. But I didn't go home. I watched her from the end of the aisle as she paid for her groceries. She used cash. I noticed because Dorothy always used our joint credit card and kept every receipt in that little organizer she carried. This woman folded the bills carefully, pressed the edges flat with her thumb. The exact same way Dorothy did. When she pushed her cart toward the exit, my feet started moving without permission. I followed her outside, staying back, pretending to check my phone. I felt ridiculous and desperate and more awake than I'd been in months. She loaded her groceries into an old Honda Civic, white with a dent on the passenger door. Not Dorothy's car. Not the blue Camry we'd bought 3 years ago when she said we needed something reliable for retirement. But the way she put the bags in the trunk was unmistakable. Heavy stuff first, bread on top, eggs last. Exactly like Dorothy always did. I memorized the license plate without realizing it. She drove out of the parking lot, and I got in my truck and followed her. I stayed back 3 or 4 car lengths, close enough not to lose her, far enough to stay hidden. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. We drove through neighborhoods I knew, then turned into an area I rarely visited. Smaller houses, older ones, the kind people buy when they're starting over. She parked in front of a yellow house with a white picket fence and flower boxes under the windows. Very different from our brick colonial on Maple Street. This place looked cozy. Simple. She got out with her grocery bags, and then the front door opened. A man appeared. About my age. Maybe 60, wearing a work shirt and jeans. He smiled when he saw her. Not a polite smile. A familiar one. He took one of the bags from her hands and kissed her cheek. My vision went blurry. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Then I heard voices. Children's voices. A boy and girl, maybe 8 and 10, burst through the front door. "Grandma Pat," the girl shouted. "Did you get the ice cream?" Grandma Pat. She laughed at that. The same laugh I'd heard across our breakfast table for decades. The laugh I thought was gone forever. She crouched down and let the kids climb on her while balancing the grocery bags. The man watched with a smile, his hand resting on her back like he owned the right to touch her. They all went inside together. The door closed. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, parked halfway down the street like some kind of stalker. The afternoon sun was warm through the windshield, but I was cold all over. I took out my phone and started taking pictures. The house. The car. The address number by the mailbox. As the sun started to set, I drove home to our empty house and sat in the garage, staring at those photos, zooming in on her face over and over. Every detail matched. Every shadow was right. When I finally went inside, one question echoed louder than anything else: if Dorothy was alive, then who had I buried? That night, I didn't even try to sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with Dorothy's old photo albums spread out like evidence. I compared the pictures I'd taken that day with photos from our life together. Our wedding day. Vacations. Her 50th birthday party. Every scar matched. The small mole near her collarbone that she was self-conscious about. The slightly crooked way her left ear sat because of an infection when she was little. These weren't things grief invented. These were facts written in flesh. At 4 a.m., I picked up the phone and called our son Michael. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice thick with sleep. "Dad? Do you know what time it is? I need you to come over," I said. "Right now." A pause. "Dad, did something happen? Are you okay? I saw your mother yesterday. I saw Dorothy alive." Silence. Then a sharp breath. "Dad, we've talked about this. Grief can make you see things that aren't there. I followed her home, Michael. I saw where she lives. I saw her family." My voice didn't shake. That seemed to scare him more than if I'd been crying. "Stay there," he said finally. "Don't go anywhere. I'm coming over." Michael arrived 45 minutes later. He didn't knock. Just used his key like he used to when he was a teenager coming home late. He found me at the kitchen table, surrounded by photos. "Dad," he said softly. "What's going on?" I handed him my phone. I didn't speak. I watched his face as he scrolled through the pictures. At first, confusion. Then disbelief. Then something else. Fear. He swallowed hard and gave the phone back. "She looks like Mom," he said carefully. "But people resemble each other sometimes. Did you see her hands?" I asked. "The wedding ring tan line." Michael rubbed his face. "Dad, we buried Mom. You were there. I was there. Everyone was there." "Closed casket," I said quietly. He looked away. "The doctor said it was better that way. The accident was bad." "Did you see her body, Michael?" His jaw tightened. "No. Neither did I." The room felt very small suddenly. I stood up. "I want to go back there," I said. "I want you to come with me." "Dad, this isn't healthy. Are you coming, or am I going alone?" He hesitated long enough for something to crack in his expression. "Fine," he said finally. "We'll go so you can see it's not her. So you can let this go." We drove to the yellow house in Michael's car. I directed him to park a short distance away, where we could watch without being obvious. "That's the one," I said, pointing. Michael leaned forward in his seat. After a few minutes, the front door opened. The woman stepped out to get the morning paper. Michael's face went white. He stared at her, not moving, barely breathing. As she walked to the mailbox and back. When I looked at my son, tears were streaming down his cheeks. "Dad," he whispered. In that moment, before he said another word, I knew. Whatever truth he'd been carrying, it was finally breaking him too. Michael gripped the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping him upright. His shoulders were shaking. I'd seen my son cry before, when his marriage failed, when he lost his job in 2008, but never like this. This wasn't sadness. This was collapse. "Dad," he said, his voice barely audible. "I'm so sorry." Sorry. That word landed with terrible clarity. Sorry meant guilt. Sorry meant he knew something. "Tell me," I said. My voice sounded distant even to myself. He lifted his head and looked at me. His eyes were red and filled with something I'd never seen in them before. Shame. "Mom didn't die in that accident." The words hung between us. I didn't gasp. I didn't yell. Some part of me had already crossed into a place where shock couldn't reach me anymore. "Go on," I said. Michael took a deep breath like he was about to dive underwater. She had another life, Dad. For about 15 years. That man you saw, Calvin Harper, she's been living with him part-time since the early 2000s. I stared straight ahead at the yellow house. How long have you known? About 4 years, Michael admitted. I found out by accident. I was helping her with some paperwork for her bank job. I saw duplicate bills, utilities, insurance payments. 2 households. The bank job. The job that required her to travel to different branches, sometimes staying overnight in other cities. The job I'd been proud of her for keeping even after I retired. And you said nothing. He wiped his face with his sleeve. She begged me not to tell you. She said it would destroy you. Said if you found out, you'd take half of everything. In the divorce. The house, the retirement accounts, everything she'd built. Everything we'd built, I corrected silently. Michael nodded miserably. 6 months ago, she came to me with a plan. She said she wanted to end the double life but couldn't face a divorce. Too messy, too expensive. So she decided it would be easier if you thought she was dead. My hand started shaking. Easier for who? For her, Michael whispered. And for me. I turned to him sharply. For you. He couldn't look at me. If she died, the life insurance money came to me as beneficiary. She'd transferred most of the joint accounts to herself beforehand under a different name. The rest came to me. I thought I could take care of you, give you an allowance, make sure you were okay. An allowance. Like I was a child. Like I was a stranger. How did she fake it? I asked. Michael swallowed. There was a woman. A homeless woman who was terminally ill. No family except a distant cousin who never visited. Mom paid her. Paid the cousin too. They staged a car accident. Mom used the woman's documents. The woman died in the hospital under Mom's name. The world tilted. I remembered the phone call from the police. Michael insisting I shouldn't see the body. The funeral where I sobbed while people told me how strong I was. You let me bury a stranger, I said. Yes. You watched me fall apart for 6 months. Yes. You cashed the insurance check while I was taking antidepressants. Michael broke down completely. I didn't know how to stop it once it started. I thought if enough time passed, you'd heal, move on. I thought it would be kinder than the truth. Kinder. I laughed then, a short sound with no humor in it. You stole my right to make my own decisions. You stole my grief and built it on a lie. I closed my eyes, breathing slowly. Take me home. Dad, we need to talk about this more. Take me home. He started the car. We didn't speak on the drive back. When we pulled into my driveway, I got out without looking at him. Dad, please, he called after me. I didn't answer. I walked into my house and closed the door. For 3 days, I did nothing. I didn't answer Michael's calls. I watched him pull into my driveway twice from the upstairs window and leave again when I didn't answer the door. 32 years of marriage had trained me to always respond, to always try to fix things. This time I chose silence. Not the silence of defeat. The silence of planning. On the 4th morning, I woke up before dawn and knew exactly what I was going to do. I showered, put on my best shirt, and Drove downtown to a building I'd passed 100 times but never entered. Private investigations, the sign read. Third floor. The man behind the desk was about my age, gray hair, sharp eyes. He looked up when I walked in. "I need to find someone," I said, sitting down without being invited. He leaned back in his chair. "Missing or hiding?" "Hiding," I replied. "And legally dead." That got his attention. I told him everything. Not the emotions, just the facts. The accident, the closed casket, the new identity, the house. The grandchildren calling her Grandma Pat. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "If what you're telling me is true, this goes way beyond cheating. This is identity fraud, insurance fraud, and financial theft. It'll take time, and it won't be cheap." He named a number. I didn't flinch. I wrote the check. "I want proof," I said. "Bank records, property records, forged documents. Everything." He smiled faintly. "I can do that." A week later, he called. "I've got enough for a full report. You should come in." The folder he handed me was thick. Bank accounts opened under the false name Patricia Wells with over $400,000 transferred. Before the accident. Utility bills and tax records showing she'd been living a double life for 15 years. And then the last page, phone records showing regular calls between Dorothy and Michael before the accident, after the funeral, during the entire 6 months I thought I was alone. Michael hadn't just known. He'd stayed involved the whole time. I closed the folder slowly. "Thank you." The next morning, I met with a lawyer. Not the kind who handled wills or divorces. I needed someone who understood fraud. "What you're describing is criminal conspiracy," she said after reviewing the evidence. "Identity fraud, insurance fraud, financial theft. Your wife committed multiple felonies, and your son aided and benefited from them. What do you need from me?" I asked. "A confession would help. And we need those original transfer documents your son probably has access to." I knew where those would be. Michael kept an office at the accounting firm where he worked. He'd given me a spare key years ago, for emergencies. I'd never used it until now. That afternoon, I called Michael. "I'm tired of fighting," I said, letting my voice sound defeated. "I just want to understand everything so I can move forward." Relief flooded his voice. "Of course, Dad. Whatever you want to know. Let's have lunch tomorrow. Somewhere quiet." He agreed immediately. The next day, I sat across from my son at a back booth in Denny's and let him talk. I asked when the plan started, how the money was moved, who signed what. Each answer came easily now, unguarded, confident that I was just a broken old man trying to make sense of things. He didn't notice the recorder in my shirt pocket. While we ate, my lawyer was already at work. With the evidence I'd provided, she'd gotten emergency access to financial records. By the time lunch ended, the trap was closed. That afternoon, she filed complaints with the district attorney. Fraud, forgery, financial exploitation, identity theft. 2 hours later, she called me. "Warrants have been issued. They'll make arrests tomorrow morning." I sat in my living room when the call ended. The house was quiet except for the grandfather clock Dorothy had bought at an estate sale 10 years ago. I thought about the man I'd been 6 months ago, crying into my coffee, missing a woman who'd been lying to me for half our marriage. That man wouldn't have survived this. But I wasn't him anymore. The first call came at dawn. It was my lawyer. "Your son was arrested an hour ago." No resistance. Your wife is being picked up as we speak. I closed my eyes and let those words settle. Somewhere across town, Michael was being handcuffed, read his rights, led to a police car. Dorothy was probably confused, maybe scared, definitely caught. The weight of that didn't feel like victory. It felt like inevitability. By noon, the news had spread through our circle. Old friends, neighbors, people who'd brought casseroles after the funeral. They were calling with questions they didn't really want answered. I didn't answer any of them. At 2 p.m., my lawyer called again. The identity she's using, Patricia Wells, is being invalidated. The accounts under that name are frozen. She has nowhere to run. Dorothy died 3 weeks later. Not in some dramatic courtroom scene, not in handcuffs. She had a heart attack in the county jail while awaiting arraignment. The call came early on a Tuesday morning, calm and procedural. She passed at 5:30 a.m., the voice said. You're listed as next of kin. For a long moment, I said nothing. I didn't feel relief or sorrow. What I felt was distance, like the woman they were describing had stopped being part of my life the moment I learned the truth. Cremate her, I said finally. No service. She'd already taken enough from me. She wasn't getting one last performance. The legal process continued without her. Michael accepted a plea deal. 5 years for financial fraud and conspiracy. Not life, but long enough to understand consequences. We spoke once after his sentencing, through the visitor's glass. I love you, I told him. But love doesn't erase what you did. He nodded. For the first time, he didn't argue or make excuses. Months passed. The house felt different, lighter. I redecorated, not to erase memories but to claim space for myself. I started woodworking again, something I'd given up when Dorothy said the garage was too cluttered. I traveled with old friends from the construction crew. I laughed without guilt. I slept through the night. Today, my life is quieter, smaller in some ways, but stronger in all the ways that matter. I learned that loyalty without honesty is just enabling. I learned that even after decades of lies, it's never too late to choose the truth. And I learned that dignity isn't something someone gives you in a marriage. It's something you claim the moment you refuse to be lied to anymore. That choice changes everything. Sometimes the people who claim to protect you from pain are the ones causing it most deeply. Real strength isn't staying loyal through deception, it's having courage to demand truth when everything falls apart.